Hi, everybody. I'm Maria Green, the host of the 2017 Art Journaling Journey, which is a free art journaling prompts with different artists. And we have the August artist with us today for a chat. And this is Trisch Rosema, and she lives in South Africa, which to me, coming from Florida, is a very exotic place. You think of Africa, you think of exotic arts and exotic animals, and I wouldn't even know what to say about South Africa, but it's got to be a beautiful country. And I would love to hear something about yourself and your life, Trish, and how you got into making art over time.
So. Right. Well, thanks, Maria, for inviting me to be your guest artist. I'm really honored. And yes, you're right, I am South African, but I have lived around the world in some very exotic places like Kazakhstan and Egypt. I never lived in the States, though, although my children went to American international schools, so they all speak like Americans, but I still speak like an English South African. And you're right, it sounds like a very exotic country to come from. No, we don't go to work and to school on the back of elephants, and we don't have lions running around in our backyard, although my black cat thinks that he's a big lion. And we have all the trappings of the first world countries in South Africa, except for art journal materials. It's been a huge struggle to get a lot of the products that I see on the YouTube videos. You know, for instance, Dilution paints. You've had them for a long while. We're only just getting them in South Africa now. Although I must say I'm very fortunate in that I have a son who lives in America and some friends who often come visit. So I go onto YouTube, onto Amazon, onto Michael's, onto all the sites, and I buy all my materials and they bring them back for me. So how I got into art journaling was we had come back to South Africa, and while I'd lived around the world, I'd sort of tried to do some scrapbooking, if you could call it that, where, you know, I would take photographs. We still printed them out in those days. They weren't digital photographs. And I would put them into albums with perhaps some tickets or stubs or plane tickets or whatever, some sort of ephemera that I'd collected along our journey. And then when we came back here and I got sort of onto YouTube and I was watching the journalists out there, I thought, this is something I could do. And I've never been, let's call it an artist, you know. I think my most basic art was done at school, and then nothing from the time I left school until maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So I only really started art journaling then.
Well, how cool. I love your art. I've seen, it's hard to believe that you have not been art journaling for 20 years or, you know, you're just such a, I think you have such great color ideas and talent for form, and I just love it. So I'm glad that you have a chance to actually order and get some materials there, but they will get all the things you need eventually, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, there are some art stores who are seeing now that there are more art journalists in South Africa. So we are getting a lot more of the products. And in fact, we've just received some of the Jane Davenport products. So we're very excited about that, of course.
Yes, I saw your video on the things that was a big score.
It was, yes.
That's very inspiring too. So what inspires you generally, especially in the art journaling modality? I know you make crafts and paint on stones and things like that.
Yeah, I don't have a particular style. You know, my art is not something that you'll easily recognize. I think initially when I started doing my art journaling, I was trying to find a style. So in a way I was copying the styles of other artists. But as I've gone along, I've found that, first of all, I enjoy color. And I think color is what attracts me in any form or any medium. My inspiration comes from something that I might have thought or read or seen in a magazine. I don't have, you know, I can't say that all I do is draw faces or all I do is paint rocks. I try and spread all the love because I've been deprived of it for so long. So now I'm trying to like get all the art journaling and the art crafting and whatnot together in one space as quickly as possible.
That's very cool. I know you have a job or that you're studying for a PhD in something that's not art, but how do you combine your art with your regular job or studies? I don't know what to really call it, but
yeah, well, both, because I have a full day job and then I also am, as you rightly say, I'm studying. So I think my art is 10 minutes every day, at least. That's just my relaxation time, a cup of tea, maybe sit early in the morning or late at night. I don't necessarily start an art project to finish it. You know, I go back to my pages, I add in, I remove sometimes, I gesso over pages, whatever. And then at least once every other week, I take a day off. And I spend that day with two friends and we do all types of crafting.
wow.
So I think that's my release as well. But you know, what is time? I mean, I only need a couple hours of sleep every night, so that's how I'm.
Yeah, well, it takes discipline because so many people say they want to make art and they don't do it because fear or other things come in the way. It's not maybe important enough, but how do you stick to your discipline? Did you just start doing it and sticking with it, or did you promise yourself you were going to give art a chance?
Yeah, and I carry a box with me, a handheld box. It's almost like a travel box with a couple of pencils, some watercolor, my journals, and I take it in my car with me to work because the type of work that I do is not in front of the public and it's also not in an office. I'm an alternative health practitioner. So when I have patients, I'm working with them. When I don't have patients, I have the time to just sit, and even when I'm on the telephone, I might doodle or I might paint in something. So it's always on my desk in my back office.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah. So it's more of a need than a discipline then.
It's a bit of both, I think. You know, I think you have to be disciplined to do art or to complete your art journals. I think you do, if that's what you wish. You know, we start an art journal usually at the front page and we usually end at the back. I'll show you something of mine.
Yes.
I didn't start at the front. Here's a journal. Here's just a Moleskine journal, and let me show you. I'll get it for you in a moment. I started, you can see the thickness of the journal, but I started near the back. So that's the other, yeah, that's just
so beautiful, beautiful.
It's just some acrylics that I used my fingers, and I love working with my fingers with acrylics. And then, yeah, I just added some verbiage, you know, but I don't think one needs to start at the beginning to finish at the end either. So a lot of my journals, you'll just find empty pages here and there, and they might be overstuffed, and they might, like this one is just a messy journal, this big one. And, you know, when I'm trying out something, for instance, I'll show you, when I first started doing dottilism, which is what Elspeth McLean does, that's what I started with, you know.
Oh, those are beautiful.
I was testing out the different tools that I could maybe use. So this journal has got maybe some good stuff. Oh, I just found a pencil that has fallen out because I'm busy coloring her. So I've kept the pencil in. So,
Yes.
yeah, you know, every journal has a story, I guess.
Yes, and whatever comes that day, it could be a face or it could be just doodling or some text. And yes, I find sometimes I have a snippet of an idea or a line from, I see a line in a magazine or something, and then that sparks an idea for an art journaling page.
Yeah, I often see some words and then I write them down in my notebook that I carry in my bag with me. And as you saw in the video that you very kindly posted up earlier, which is part of that art hop, I'll show you quickly. Here it is here. So this is the little one that I'm carrying in my bag at the moment. And I've started adding to it. For instance, a friend of mine, sadly, her mum passed away. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's just a small, it was a Shakespeare sentiment that I found, and I'd already had the pages colored. So all I did was I added some black, because I only carry a black and white pen with me for this particular journal. And then, you know, if I see something, I cut it out and I glue it in at the time. I might not journal on it straight away, but I certainly have got place to journal. I'll show you today. I quickly did something because it's my son's birthday, my youngest son, and it's quite funny, but I did it on a pink page because up until he was born, he was, according to the gynecologist, 99.9% sure it was a girl. So, and he's 30 years old, and I still often say to him, blue for a boy and pink for a boy, you know. So that's my journal page from today.
I love that. I watched the video how you made that little journal, and it's so simple, but it looks sophisticated when you put paint on it and start adding things in it.
I think that, yeah, I think that's what I love about making these little journals, is because it's not a book that you actually are faced with. You know, it's quite a daunting task for a new journaler. I remember the first book I bought, I opened it and I thought, where do I start? What do I do? You know, that blank page fear.
Yes.
And now I just slap paint over the paper as well, because then I'm not facing a blank page.
True. I do the same thing to just get over that. It's already started, and then you can add on to your heart's desire.
Yeah.
So let me see here. Okay, can you tell me a little bit what your favorite art journaling brands and tools are? I know we mentioned dilutions, and but do you have any other favorite tools?
I think my favorite is working with acrylics and my fingers. That's my favorite. I've ventured out into doing some watercolor. I took a watercolor class recently, but I'm very I don't want to say fearful of it, but it's quite daunting, you know, to work with watercolor. But slowly I'm starting to understand the medium. I'm never going to be a realistic watercolor artist, that I understand. But I love the fact that I can take a bit of water, slap some pigment onto it and put it into my journal, you know, and it just does its own thing. So I really like that. I love jelly plate printing as well. I've started doing some collage recently, and I'm getting quite, I'm quite enjoying it as well. You know, initially I thought, oh, why do I want to do collage? I can draw, you know, I shouldn't have to cut out words and stick them on.
Right.
But there's a place for collage, and I'm really enjoying it, I must say.
Yes.
I just think all the art tools that I have at my disposal have become precious to me. I love every single one of them. But if I had to choose, I think acrylics would be my favorite.
I do like acrylics too very much, because you can do all kinds of things with them. It's not, but I like stencils and some stamps, rubber stamps. And do you make any of your own stamps or stencils?
Yes, I have made some. I actually have a silhouette cutter, so I do cut my own stencils. Again, stencils and stamps are very expensive here in South Africa. So, but I have bought some. But I must say that I love the freedom of actually making my own stamps and my own stencils, because it's not contrived, you know. It's not, well, when somebody sees a journal page, they go, oh, that's a Tim Holtz stencil, or that's a so-and-so stamp, you know. Although I would be very, very pleased to have Tim Holtz stencils and stamps. But yeah, so I make my own.
So you, what do you, how should I put that question? When you make your stamps, do you use like anything that you can cut into, or is there like a base?
I think the easiest, I have done some, I've used the foam, the very thin foam craft material that the kids use it. And I've cut and stuck those onto pieces of cardboard, and that works really well. And then the newest sort of form of making my stamps that I'm really enjoying is I use a pyrography tool. That's one of those the wood burning tools.
Yeah.
And I actually made a video of that as well. Because that is, and also on the same material, on that foam craft, thin foam, I don't know what you call it. It's like foam material.
Right, it's like a sheet of foam that is maybe, I don't know, a centimeter or a quarter of an inch.
No, not even. It's about, about a quarter of an inch maybe thick.
Yeah, I think.
And once I cut that, I stick that onto, in fact, do you want me to show you one quickly?
You have one handy.
I've got one right here. So here, if you can see that.
Yes.
Have a look there. It's very, very thin piece of foam. And all I did was I drew the design using the pyrography tool, and then I shoved it onto a piece of cardboard.
Oh, great.
So I've used this in my jelly prints many times, and it's great to leave the impression in the jelly print, and then it's also good to actually use it to stamp off with as well.
It's interesting because mandala print or stamps are so expensive, and you're limited to sizes.
Yeah, here's another one. You can see it's very flimsy as well, this material that I use. But I've cut out strips and just placed them on, so it's almost, you know, you can roll it onto your journal or your page or your jelly print, whatever. So yeah, and you can make all types. There's another one that's a favorite of mine as well, you know, and I used it with some pink acrylic, but yeah.
Yes, I love all of those tools. We get addicted to tools and art journaling. So how do you get your ideas? Like, would something come up in your head while you're taking a shower, or do you dream an image, or see just some words like we talked about earlier?
I think also I'm inspired by other artists. I do a lot of YouTube watching as well. So I might see something that somebody else has handy or they've made themselves, and that will inspire me to perhaps use their idea and embellish on it maybe, or even just use their idea completely.
Yeah, or maybe into your own style, or modify it. Yes. Yeah, that's I like to watch videos too to get ideas. And so what is your favorite color or color?
Wow, you know, I used to love pink. That was my favorite color for many years. But I think teal and turquoise and the blues are probably sort of like an aqua green. Teal is probably my favorite color at the moment, and it seems to be creeping in a lot of my pages.
Those are my favorite colors too, actually.
Yeah, and yes, I saw that. I did see that. Here's my last page that I did. I don't know if you can see that, but
yes.
that I actually cut. This is stencil. This white here is actually a stencil that I cut, and then it's texture paste that I've put over. So it's acrylic on the background, and then I've collaged. The protea is South Africa's national flower. So I've collaged that, and I've put a poem that was written about the king protea. I cut it out on a stencil and then just used the texture paste for it. So you can see the teals and the blues are all sort of starting to creep in these days into my my diary, my journal.
Right. Is that part of the evolution of your exploration?
I think so. You know, as I said, I'm still a juvenile journaler. I don't have the expertise that many of the ladies out there have, and I'm in awe of them. They do the most amazing work. But I've seen a progression of where I started off. I was really uncertain of how to journal, and I was very critical of the journal pages that I did. And now I've swiped that right out the back door, and I don't give a fig what anybody else thinks. It's my journal, and it's my personal, you know, my expression. So, I mean, there are pages of my journal that I look at and I think, oh, how could I have even done that? And then I slap myself on the head and I say, well, so what? You did it, and it was part of that growth progress, you know, the progression. So, what
I love about art journaling is there's no pressure to like perform, because you're never going to sell it or put it out in a shop, or unless you make a copy, I guess. But there's no pressure for it to be in any way pretty, or that's something I like about it, because many of my pages are pretty ugly. Like, I don't even know how I got them that ugly, but it's just part of the process of moving forward and learning more about myself, actually, and what I can express.
Quite right. And quite frankly, I don't think any journal page is ugly. I think every page, one has a perception of what we do, but somebody else's art is so subjective that what somebody else sees in that piece of work would probably please them, you know. So, but you're right, journals are personal, and I love flipping through my journals and thinking, oh, I remember doing that, and I remember what I was thinking that day, you know, as I drew it or painted or whatnot. So it's a lovely reminder of my life, I guess.
Yes. So do you feel that you work out any kind of problems in your art? Like, say you have a personal problem or a problem at work or something that bothers you. Do you use that at all in your art? Or,
you know, Maria, I don't, because thank God I'm a very positive person generally, and I don't allow anything negative into my space. I pretty much take it and not own it, because most of the time it's not mine. And I don't want to say that I don't have problems, because we all have some sort of problems, but my art is my happiness, my happy space. So I don't come to my journal. There has been one time where I did what I called my negative smackdown, and I was desperately unhappy about an issue that had happened, which was no fault of my own. And I wrote it in my journal, and I used my stamps, and I stamped it away, and then I put beautiful color over it. And you know, I can't remember what I wrote on that page, and it's gone for eternity. It's in my journal, but I can't remember it.
Yeah.
I did. Yeah. You know, I didn't video that page that day. And it's here, but it's gone.
Yeah, maybe you did transform it without even being aware, or, you know, like thinking about transforming it or anything. Right. But say somebody wants to start art journaling and they haven't really had much experience or know where to start. Could you give a little advice of where you would recommend people to start?
I think the first thing is you need to look at what tweaks you. You know, do you love color? Are you a black and white doodly sort of person? Do you like working with, or do you like writing, script, maybe calligraphy? Because calligraphy on its own comes into art journaling. When I first started journaling, I found that my handwriting was absolutely shocking. And then I did a course and I found my own font. So now when I do anything in my journal, for instance, I don't know if you can see, yeah, that's just a white pen, but that's my own handwriting.
Love it.
And I've just learned how to embellish it. So now I love my handwriting. You know, if you love color, do you like being messy with a color? Do you want to work with brushes? Do you want to work with your fingers? And I think for anybody who wants to start art journaling is to go and read the blogs, watch the YouTube videos, and find something, just one thing that you can start off with. That blank page syndrome drives me crazy. So I would say buy 3 sprays in your favorite color so that you can just splotch on the page and it's got color, or glue in some images and then work on top of it. But I think each person will find their own style, and that's another thing. I don't have a style, you know. I think I'm seeing a style emerging now, and that's all in these little journals. But for a newbie, don't go buy expensive, because you might not like the medium. So, but also don't buy cheap, you know, because cheap stuff doesn't always work either. So maybe focus in on one area first and slowly build up your stash as you go along.
Yes, and there are many different kind of journals that you can buy in the art stores and craft stores. We have Michael's here in the States, many different kinds of.
Yeah.
But wherever you are in the world, I mean, you can mail order things too, and maybe have friends that can deliver from other countries. But it's good to have maybe a journal, mixed media journal that is special thickness of paper, at least 90 pounds or more. And
Yes.
Watercolor paper is good for all kinds of wet media.
Well, that's the other thing is, you know, my little journals that I make are always pieces of paper that I cut up. So you don't, look, I would say buy the book first, you know, buy a proper book bound journal. But the nice thing is, if you've got a piece of paper, doesn't matter what it is, if it's cardstock, if it's watercolor paper, you can make your own little journal as well, and it holds the medium that you throw onto it.
Yes.
So personally, I think that's the route I'm going to go in futures. I'm going to be making my own journals, or signatures rather. They're not real journals yet, but they're all signatures, which at some stage I will probably bind into a journal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can bind them into and make them as thick as you like, or thin. You have more choice. So I'm certain that most countries carry watercolor paper in loose sheets of paper, and then people can make their journals from that. So that's a good way to start, and just use, and then put them in a folder or bind them with some thread. Or I know there are many videos on YouTube that show how to bind simple journals.
Yes, yeah, and I think I'm looking forward to finally having enough signatures to put together into a journal. I remember once seeing a YouTube video where a lady used a cardboard, a box that some cookies came in, and I specifically went out and bought that product so that I could have the box ready.
I love it.
A journal cover.
Yes.
I enjoyed the cookies as well.
Right. What I'm going to leave this topic, but what kind of markers do you like the best? I prefer permanent markers because you can paint on top of those and it won't smear, but what brands do you like the best?
There are two brands that or three brands that I've worked with. Copic, I love Copic. I was very fortunate in that I was able to buy a huge set of Copics. I'll never do that again though, because many of the colors I haven't used, so it was rather a waste. But Copics I love working with. The other markers are the paint markers, the Poscas. Poscas and Sharpies are fabulous. And then the brush markers like Tombos. I've got Tombos. Tombos, because they react with water and they're constantly reactive, I don't use them that often if I'm doing mixed media. But I did use them in the background of one of my, in fact, I used them on this girl, okay? And you can see she bled. So I call her Miss Bleedy Eyes because this was the Tombow marker and it didn't work so well with this particular paper. But I have had good results with Tombow using it on watercolor paper and making some very sweet little cards and so on.
Yeah, cards is good because they're small. You can use recipe cards and to also if you're fear of larger size paper. But I think we learn by doing, and the only way to really know how any material works is by trying. Using them, and then you know how it's going to be. So it's always fun to try different materials.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I must say that I've gone through them all, from index cards to pieces of cardboard, from packaging to brown paper packets, you name it. But I'm not. I don't like using things like brown paper packets. It's not that I don't recycle. I just don't recycle very well in my art. So I prefer working with clean substrates to start off with, if I could call it that.
Yeah. No, I understand that it can be distracting to use things that are already patterned or
quite right,
like commercial stuff. But
yeah.
Well, Trish, I really enjoyed chatting with you here today. And as I said, you're going to be the guest artist for August with 4 prompts and some videos, and people can go and check out your YouTube channel at, what is it called again? Art
Journal Junkie.
Art Journal Junkie. So there's like at least 50 videos there, right? So there's lots to learn and be inspired by. And you also have a group on Facebook. I can put a link at the end here for people to check it out. But is it also Art Journal Junkie?
Quite right,
name of the group? Okay.
Yes.
So that's another way people can find you. But do you have any last advice for artists or budding artists?
I do. I just want to say, if I could do it, so can you. I promise you, it's one of the most wonderful ways of enriching your life, is to just play around with color, with all the mediums, and don't be frightened. Don't let anybody tell you that you're not doing it right, because whatever you do in your journal is yours. True,
so true. I totally feel that, and I agree with everything you said. So, well,
yes, thank you so much. I've enjoyed chatting to you as well.
Yeah, this was very enlightening and fun. So I really appreciate you, and I look forward to all your August prompts. And I hope you have a wonderful winter in South Africa, in the heat of summer here. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the heat of summer because it's very cold here at the moment.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what it's like. But well, thank you very, very much, and we'll see you online.
We will do. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.